Let's move on. We want to talk about the weekend's hurling, and I'm delighted today Tommy Walsh is with us. Good morning, Tommy. How you doing?
Morning, Ger. Morning, Eoin.
So I want to start by maybe looking back on the Tipperary defeat. We're definitely going to talk about the Galway Kilkenny situation, but Michael Ryan obviously went on Tipp FM yesterday. It was just a little bit late. Probably should have come out after the match and talked immediately afterwards to try and quell what we know is a notoriously difficult Tipperary hurling public. So did he do the right thing eventually in coming out? Has that put to bed the notion of him not talking and whether or not it's even important?
Yeah, and I'd say, Ger, hands off to him, because like he knew, I'd say, immediately after the match he came out with the media ban, and I'd say when he sat down and thought about it, he realised that was a mistake, that was going to bring more criticism on the team, more criticism on himself, and just, I suppose, he didn't want distractions, and that's what this exactly seemed to be doing. So fair play to him, like, for coming out. I'm sure it wasn't easy. Like, he could have just backed himself and just instead stubborn and said, listen, no, we'll keep to the 4 weeks. I'm after coming out with that now. But no, he acknowledged he kind of made a mistake, and I'd say hands off to him, because we all know Michael Ryan, Ger, from he's with Tipperary since, I'd say, 2008, and he seems to be just a real genuine Tipperary man. Loves the blue and gold, and so I'd say really hands off to him. It would have been easier for him to just kind of stay stubborn.
The other thing that he did say was that they're not showing the best of themselves. We have this reputation now as a long ball team, and that's not really who we are, who we're trying to be, which was interesting, because that has been the criticism that has been most prevalent, is that for all the talent that they have as a forward line, they don't look dangerous, they don't look like they have a style of play, and they don't look like they actually have the right players in their best positions to create good ball going into the forwards.
Yeah, I suppose there's a few different points there, Ger. One thing you probably have to look at, as we've been talking about since the start of this new format: injuries, form. So if a team has a load of injuries, you could be very unlucky in this competition, because Tipperary have 4 matches in a row. They don't even have a break. And coming up to that match the other day, there was doubts about Cathal Barrett, there was doubts about Bonner. There was Seamie Callan hasn't hurled in, I'd say, since last probably August. You know, like, they've just injuries upon injuries. Noel McGrath was injured for most of the league. So I think they've been really hounded with injuries. And I just think it probably came a bit, you know, if this was a normal structure, they would have 3 weeks off now, get their injuries back, and on they go again. But I'd say a lot of their changes, I know he wanted to freshen it up as well, but I'd say a lot of the changes were forced. Now, it's like I always say, history is written by the winners. Like, you go back to last year, what was the criticism of the Tipperary management? That they stuck with the same team that was after winning the All-Ireland for the previous year. Why didn't Michael Ryan freshen it up? If people go back and cast their minds back to the year they won the All-Ireland, 2016, Michael Ryan freshened it up that year. He brought in Dan McCormick, he brought in Seamus Kennedy, all these new guys. They won, so it was a masterstroke. They lost the other day, so suddenly, why didn't he stick with it, tried and trusted? So I think it's very easy to look back in hindsight. I thought it was a great call. My own personal opinion was I thought it was a great call. Like, Seamus Callan, if he had to pick Seamus Callan and he didn't go well, people would be saying, why did he pick a man that had back trouble, hasn't played in 8 or 9 months? Why did he pick Bonner, who supposedly has a hamstring injury? Like, you know, I think it's very easy to criticise him now. I don't think he had much choice. He went with what he thought. He obviously thought it would go well in training.
Fair enough about the subs. I buy that. What about the position of Paddy Maher and Ronan Maher, when you consider there was a stage in the league where they were both going really well, and it just seems as if Paddy Maher is like one of the greatest halfbacks that we've ever seen at right halfback, not necessarily one of the best centre backs we've ever seen. And I understand you're trying to build your team, you're trying to make the spine of your team better, and you kind of, maybe you're willing to make a little bit of an accommodation for that, for what you lose. But I don't know, it just seems like you're losing too much at the moment.
Yeah, well, I thought during the league Ronan Maher was out midfield, and I thought Cathal Barrett was out midfield, just to freshen up the whole thing. I thought eventually they were going to go back into the half-back line. Like, what's really after backfiring really is Ronan Maher went so well midfield. If Ronan Maher only had a kind of a middling league, well, then there'd be nobody talking about it. I think his natural position is in the half-back line, where he's facing the ball and on he goes. Now, it's such a brilliant league, then maybe there was a case there to leave him there. Paddy Maher centre-back, I would actually be putting Paddy Maher back full-back. I think that's where the confidence seems to be draining out of the team. That, listen, if the ball goes in long to the full back line, like they're already missing Mickey Cahill, they're already missing Cottle Barrett. So I think I was at the league final right behind the goal, in the new stand behind the goal inside Nolan Park. And when things when Tipperary were in trouble in the last 10 minutes, they put Pádraig Maher back in full back. And if you can think of it, most of the ball goes into the full forward line, to the full forward. So if you have your best player in there clearing ball, like go back to the Brian Lohans, the Rocks, Noel Hickeys, even last weekend, like I know they lost, but Dave McInerney was brilliant. So if it was me, I'd be putting Pádraig Maher back full back.
And would that role, say if it were to be instigated this Sunday, hypothetically, would that be, as you say, a man clearing up kind of almost as a looser full-back, or given the individual scoring threats that Cork have from the likes of Horgan, Lehan and Harnedy, would it be a man-marking job?
No, I wouldn't. Pádraig Maher I would not be putting on a man-marking job, because he's what I call a baller. He goes after the ball the whole time. He's not going to be following a man, keeping him out of the game. Like he's not a sticky man marker. So I'd be leaving him full back, that he just launches attack after attack after attack. When the ball comes in, high or low, he's brilliant. Like he's a great man to read the ball on. So I'd be more seeing him there. If he concedes a few points, no problem. But like he was, I think it was 2009. I'd say it was his first year with Tipperary. He played against those in probably league finals and All-Ireland finals. He was a brilliant full back that year. So listen, you're robbing Peter to play Paul. JJ Delaney, the greatest defender that I've ever seen, was played full back for most of his career, because if he had to be number 7, he would have been, if you can imagine, even better again. And I think Pádraig Maher, while I'd love to see him, Ger, number 7, that's his home, because he can just, read the game at best from there, without having to, when you're centre back or full back, you're constantly having to keep your eye on your man. So I would love to see him number 7 if all things were right. But in this current situation, I think it might just give a bit of confidence back into this Tipperary team, which I think they're lacking, is a bit of confidence.
It has the added benefit then, if you need to go short with puck-outs, you do have his ability to launch the ball from there as well. So I can totally see there's knock-on benefits to it throughout the team. So what do you make then of the game this weekend against Cork? Because I was unbelievably impressed with Cork and just their ability to grind that out in the second half. They took that horrible injury situation and they got the team together and they come out of it and they blitz Clare immediately afterwards. That's a sign of a team who are really at it, who know exactly what their role is, who aren't going to have their confidence or anything broken, and you can really see them growing from that game last weekend.
Well, you can, but cast your mind back to the first round of the league when they were brilliant against Kilkenny. Kilkenny came back at them, and Cork went on and won to be a few points again in the end. It was a very similar match to last Sunday. I think this is the most dangerous match of the year for Cork. But if you can imagine, they're all on a high. Are they now slightly off guard because Tipperary were so poor last Sunday? And I think Tipperary are going to be at their best now of their potential, because they're still not going to have all their injuries back to full pelt. So as of their potential, I think Tipperary are going to come out all guns blazing. Like we always say, hunger is the best sauce. Like, you have the criticism that's going to be thrown at them this week. Even their own selves, they're going to be so down and out that they can't wait for Sunday, I'd say, to come along. I hear Brendan Cummins, I hear Owen Kelly, they're rallying the Tipperary supporters to come out in force on Sunday. When you have your leaders, like them, Cummins and Kelly were two of the leaders when Tipperary were going well. They're guys that kind of a team seems to come in around them. And the Tipperary supporters are listening to that, but say, do you know what? If them two boys are getting behind this team, let's us get behind them. And you might see an extra few thousand Tipperary supporters in, and instead of criticising them, they'll rally in behind them. So I think this is set up for Tipperary, and I would be very, very cautious if I was a Cork man.
It's going to be a great game, though. It's like it's properly set up.
Yeah, and that's what I have it written down here. I think we could have the two games of the summer. The Kilkenny and Galway match, obviously, up in Pearse Stadium because of the novelty of the whole thing. But this because of the two situations. Cork, they're in the form of their lives. We all know Cork supporters. They will follow in their thousands to Semple Stadium. You have Tipperary team and supporters that are kind of on the ground, that are just looking for some sort of hope. So I think this just could be one of the games of the year.
Brent Pope always had a great saying that I loved, that was an all-black thing. It was never give a sucker an even break. And so this being the opportunity, when you have the opportunity to kill the opponents, you have to do it and you have to kill them. I think it's something that we would have seen from your Kilkenny team down through the years. Cork do have an opportunity here to almost knock Tipperary out, to put them into full-blown crisis, to set back the hurling agenda in Tipperary a couple of years. Like, it's a massive opportunity for them. That's the other motivation. It's like, get this right, and suddenly you'd be making Cork close to All-Ireland favourites. If they can repeat what they did last week and win this game easy enough, then there's no doubt in them, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think I saw a quote from Liam Sheedy during the week, and he was saying if a corner back is getting the stride, it's usually the fault of the corner forward. Which means really is, like, the Cork forwards are brilliant attacking. They're absolutely brilliant. They mesmerise you with their speed, their skill and everything, right? Now, you'd have to nearly look at the match in detail and go back and look at the videos of it, right? And it's even harder in live, when you're watching it live. And I was down at the match last Sunday, right? So I'd love to look at the Cork forwards when they don't have the ball. And if they are to be... Now, the Cork backs, we saw what Coleman did. We saw every time the Clare boys got past the Cork defence, their defence and midfielders were unbelievable to track back, which is the sign of a very, very good team. Are the Cork forwards doing that? I haven't seen it. I haven't looked at it that deeply, Ger. But the question is, you're asking, can they go on and win the All-Ireland? If the Cork forwards, which they definitely did in the Munster Championship last year, if the Cork forwards can attack their men when they don't have the ball, so you're staying in the game when you don't have the ball and things aren't going right, then I would see Cork as a force. I'd have to look at that just a little bit deeper to see, but that would be my, I suppose, that would be me analysing them.
Yeah, do you think there's a slight worry just from a Cork perspective, just when you look at Tipp last week and everybody's hammering Tipp in terms of how they were going forward, scoring only 5 points from play, but at the same time, Tommy, they still managed to score a couple of goals. I mean, is there a potential that if Tipp get everything right this weekend that they could be back to their formidable self from 2 years ago?
Yeah, well, as Brian Cody said, I don't know where I saw his interview there recently enough, he said Tipperary are Tipperary. Tipperary won't go away. And like, they're born with their hurls down there. They will always produce hurlers. The quality, I suppose, of the Kilkenny team going back, the Galway team currently, and even Galway teams at all times, and Tipperary, their ability to score goals. When you can score goals, like I think at one stage the score was 18 points to 2-12. Like, without them 2 goals, you have Limerick really hammering Tipperary. But because of their ability to score goals, they're able to stay in the match. So I'd say Tipperary, if they can get through Munster, they'll have all their injuries back at full pelt. So I think these are the biggest 2 weeks of Tipperary's season. Even if they lose, though, they still have a chance. Like, 4 points can get you through.
Yeah, that's the thing. It would be crisis, but it wouldn't be out, and that would be like no. And we've seen them come back from the dead like a zombie before in recent memory. I want to move on to the Galway Kilkenny game because Enda McAvoy had a really interesting piece today where he was just pointing out the difference between Galway's approach already. One match into the championship was that 5 or 6 minutes into the game last week they'd scored a goal, and last year they were happy to score 26 points, 22 points, 33 points, and whatever it was they got in the All-Ireland final again. That they were a point scoring machine, and that was clearly just the team's idea and tactics and identity was, we're going to kill you with 26 points a game. This year it looks like they're trying to change things up a little bit and they're goal hungry. If they were to add goals to what they had last year, then they would be an unstoppable force. So we are seeing at least Galway aren't resting on their laurels, and they're going to represent a different challenge for teams this season.
Yeah, I suppose though we're also I suppose looking at one match. The real test for Galway is coming up. They have Kilkenny this Sunday. Like, as champions, I used to always, when we were champions, the biggest test of ourselves was always, do we remember how hard it is to win a match? Do we remember how hard it is to win a ball in championship? Because it's totally different than what goes on in your head. Because when you're coming in as the underdog, you know the other team is favourites. You know you haven't been the champions. So you will move the earth to win that ball. When you become champions then, you can suddenly, especially if you had a good enough league, you can suddenly start thinking this thing is easy again. Now you're doing it right, you're doing your gym, you're going training, you're turning up early, you're drinking the water, and you're playing lovely hurling. But do you really have that steel that it takes, that when that 50-50 ball is there, that you're going to win it? Like, Galway need to remember, they mightn't have even been in the All-Ireland final, only for Conor Whelan, chase back. I think it was Brendan Maher, Mickey Cal, one of the guys with the white helmets anyway. He chased them back, I'd say 50 yards and hooked them. And that was a really big point of that All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary. Joe Canning, who wasn't really in the game against Waterford at one stage, he came out and shoved Austin Gleeson, one of the the stars of the hurling world at the moment, shoved him out over the line, which wouldn't really be Joe's thing. Got back into the game. I think he even could have put that sideline over the bar. These are the small things that win you All-Irelands. So that's the question I think we will see. Part of it will be answered this Sunday. The fact that they're so fresh and they'll be everything so new, they should have it this Sunday anyway. But I would think that when that ball is there to be won, are they ready to really get down and dirty? That will be the big test for Galway this year, Ger.
And did you look to do things differently year on year? Like, did you look to be a slightly different team and pose a different challenge to the opposition, or did you just think we have enough hurlers that if we get everything right, we're going to be like, if we get the attitude right, then everything else will look after itself?
Yeah, well, my attitude was always the Sunday, or say even training day, that I was ready for that training session. I was ready for that match. Like, Niall Moran had an interesting piece, and I often fell into the trap of it as well, where you're ticking boxes. So you give up eating butter, you give up eating toast, you're eating kind of brown bread instead of white bread. You're maybe going to the gym every time you should be going to the gym. All this kind of a thing, where then on the Sunday you forget that, like, if you're not performing well, but I'm doing everything right. That's not what it's about. It's about preparing yourself for the Sunday. It's about preparing yourself for the Tuesday or Thursday training session. Once that ball is thrown in, that you're going to be, ruthless and just do everything you can to win that ball. So that's the way I suppose I was trying to prepare. But we had a lot of experience of it. Like, we lost the 3-0 0-4. We won 0-2, 0-3. We lost the 3-0 0-4. And then I suppose in 0-5, then you think you might come back again. And we got beaten again by Galway in a cracking All-Ireland semi-final. And you're wondering, will you ever get back to Croke Park again to win an All-Ireland medal? So you learn these things through losses, Ger.
One last question before we ask you about the Joe McDonagh Cup. What do you make of where Kilkenny are? It was interesting that I don't think it was a dummy team name, but certainly Walter Walsh we thought was going to start last week and then didn't play anything, and yet had looked absolutely in the form of his life and the shape of his life in the opening match against Dublin. So clearly Cody is managing his resources carefully, given that there are a few key players still out injured. I thought maybe Fennelly would have started last week, but again it was like, okay, we're just going to make sure that everybody is getting to be ready for the bigger games, and obviously they hurled within themselves to beat Offaly last week. So what do you expect from them this weekend?
Yeah, I don't think there was any holding back. I'd say that they were definitely carrying injuries. I think James Maher was injured, in the Mars he was sick, and I'm not sure what was the story of Wally, but he wouldn't be resting him. That's just not Cody's style, so he must have had some sort of niggle. So I'd say it was probably at the last minute they probably withdrew him from the team. Listen, they've 7 or 8 newcomers. I think this is it's going to be the test of their hurling knives this Sunday. They're coming up against a big, strong, physical Galway team. They have to be favourites because of the fact that their size, their strength, their experience, and the fact that it's up in Galway. We've seen last weekend all the home teams winning, Ger. Like, it's starting to become a big factor. We see it in the Champions League with the away goals mean more than the home goals. Well, it's the same here in the hurling. The home teams seem to be winning if there's any sort of equality with the teams. So I think it's going to be the test of their lives. But there's going to be unbelievable duels next Sunday. Like, I can't wait to see TJ Reid versus Ger and Eoin. Like, two man mountains, if you like, two left-handers, two 6'2", 6'3" players. They're in the peak of their hurling careers, the two of them. Like, I can't believe Ger and Eoin is 26 or 27, because it's only last year we really got to know him.
Yeah.
So I think that the matchup Sunday are going to be brilliant to watch.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to the Leinster Championship, I guess one of the big themes has been how unfortunate it is that somebody's going to get automatically relegated from the Leinster round robin next year. But I guess if you look at it on the flip side and you look at the Joe McDonagh Cup this year, it started off in really exciting fashion. I know there's no games this weekend, but you look at that stacked table at the moment, you look at the likes of Westmeath and Antrim at the top of the table there. We've actually got it up on screen here. Westmeath and Antrim playing on the weekend of the June bank holiday. You've got Kerry against Meath and Laois against Carlow as the next set of fixtures. It's teeing itself up beautifully, Tommy. Unfortunately, it's not going to get the coverage it deserves because there's so many other brilliant top-tier hurling games clashing directly with these games. But I guess just a word on this competition and how that table is set up so beautifully at the moment.
Yeah, and Owen, I think it's a brilliant system. We're intermediate hurling here in Kilkenny with Tullaroan, and we were senior for so many years. We got relegated back in 2011, and it was like the worst thing that could ever happen to the club. When we were after winning, I think, 1 game a year for 6 or 7 years, and hurling was tough, because no matter where you went, like everyone be talking about hurling, and it just wasn't good. So now we're back intermediate, winning more games, and hurling is blossoming again in Tullaroan. It's brilliant. So I think if we get over the fact that there's an A and B competition, when you're playing against teams the same kind of standard as yourselves, it's brilliant, because it doesn't matter whether, I guarantee you, when Westmeath won last weekend, they were just as happy winning that as they would have been playing any match or losing a Lee McCarthy match. So I think it's brilliant. Yeah, Westmeath have 3 wins. We often played the likes of Clonkill, and you see Raharney, another club up there. Like, they're brilliant clubs up in Westmeath. You see the Westmeath under-21s beat Kilkenny 2 years ago. I was up at the one last year when Kilkenny beat them, but it showed that it wasn't a fluke the year before. They really put it up to them until the last few minutes. So there's massive work going on up there. Michael Ryan, the Watford man, he's a brilliant hurling man. So things are going well for Westmeath. Then you see Laois, who would have been one of the favourites to get to the final, and they were rocked in their first 2 games, but they're after giving themselves hope by winning last week against Antrim, who are one of the top teams. So that's a brilliant competition, and I'd say Westmeath will go through, and it's a dogfight then to see who comes second.
Yeah, we must ask you about the picture over your shoulder this morning. It looks like, I've been told it's Kerry hurling team Kilmaley, but I presume I've been told it's Kerry hurling team Kilmoyley there, because it's green and gold.
That's right, yeah, Owen. That's Kilmiley, and just said I'd put it up there because we can, I suppose, forget now we're back in the middle of our inter-county games and everything is brilliant, but we might forget the clubs. So Kilmiley, they're a team in North Kerry. They have 24 championships. They were founded around the 1800s, the late 1800s. How do I know them? I lived with a guy from Kilmiley when I was in UCC for 4 years, Billy Brick. Brilliant Kerry hurler. His brother Shane Brick played for him as well. But the most famous son of all is a guy called Christy Welsh. Christy hurled with Kerry down there whilst living in Kilkenny. Jesus. And you talk about commitment, that is commitment. Bennisbridge, they're one of the most famous hurling clubs in Kilkenny. They have the Noel Skeens and Jim Tracy's, all these guys, and Seamus Clears. They were brilliant hurlers, right? And they were all born around the same little area in Bennisbridge. So they kind of went out of the hurling scene for many years, but they got things back up and they're flying it again. And who brought them to win the Junior Kilkenny, Junior All-Ireland, won the Intermediate Kilkenny, Intermediate All-Ireland? Kilmiley's famous son, Christy Welsh, just a great hurling man. And why do I bring it up is because the clubs, we're hearing about the TV deals now. There needs to be more deals on TV. We need to sort out the clubs first on. Because without the clubs, we won't have an inter-county game. I'm a county man and a club man, so just 50-50. But just let's look and sort out the clubs for next year, the championship. Just a bit of certainty and that. And listen, yeah, so that's Kilmiley, a great club from North Kerry.
Are you finding it frustrating as a club player now that actually you'd like to be playing more meaningful games at the moment while the inter-county season is on and the weather's good?
Yeah, see what happened, Ger, was we started the season with 3 months of training. We played 1 game. Now we should have had 2 games, but it didn't really matter. 1-2 games, it doesn't really matter. You train for 3 months for 2 games, which is grand if it continues. But then you couldn't, because the real championship is not going to start again until Kilkenny are finished their season. So that'll be August or September. So it's just so tough to go so hard, then relax, then get back into it. So what I would rather, if the current structures were to be the same, is just start later and then build up. And then I think what we're going to have to do, Ger, in the clubs is we're going to have to make a big deal out of secondary competitions, which are tournament games and, say, the leagues. Because you see everyone kind of in the clubs fixate on championship. But if you look at the inter-county, like look at the promotion, look at the kind of the weight that they put into the Welsh Cups and the leagues. It's massive. The championship doesn't start till now, and they put in all the effort into the league. So I think it's time for the clubs now to put in that much weight into their secondary competitions as well.
Would you like to see a separate club season and a separate inter-county season, and the club season is over and then the inter-county season starts? I know it's difficult to manage, but there's certainly a growing movement that thinks, okay, we can have a self-contained club season, a self-contained inter-county season, and no overlap.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of different opinions, and everyone's going to have different kind of ideas what will work. For me, one of the ideas that a few lads had was, say if you started your secondary competitions in May, right? So you have May, June and July. So you play all them without your county players.
Yeah.
And listen, if your county team was knocked out, they can play with you, no problem. And then the championship starts proper in August. So at least right, let's go back train maybe after Paddy's Day or the 1st of April, right? No one would mind that. You train up, build up your fitness, then you start playing matches, then you have all them secondary competitions starting in May. Then by August you're going to have your championship starting. So that's one idea, but there's many different ideas. Like it's always things that are working would I be impressed with. What's happening in Monaghan seems to be working, where they have so many points if there's county players. So where something is working, I think would always be worth looking into.
Yeah, no, for sure. Tommy, great stuff. Thanks a million. Enjoy the weekend.